This is Nicholas Glover with the Tampa Bay Chamber. I want to thank and welcome our viewers tuning into our 2023 candidate interview series for the City of Tampa's City Council elections. The Chamber focuses on policy, not politics, and while we do not endorse, we do want to make sure that our members and the business community are informed on where candidates stand on the issues most important to them. We are excited to have Councilman Charlie Miranda with us today, running for City Council District 6. Thanks for joining us, Councilman.
Thank you very much, Mr. Glover.
Yes, sir. We are under 30 days from Election Day, and now that we are in this final stretch, sir, can you give us a brief update on how the campaign is going and what message you hope to deliver to voters?
Well, the message is going to be clear. I've always ran on that, who cares? And I emphasize that do you care something in the 70s, and I bring up what I made promises on, then I convert it to what happened the next 4 years. And to explain to the public sometimes doesn't get the full benefit of the comparison year to year or 4 years to 4 years. And this campaign, it's a little different. It's a lot more media oriented than public appearances. Evidently, in a 60-day from the time you say you're going to run to the day of election, it's very quick and very fast. So I think that the media outlet with direct mail and phone calls, or how you run campaigns now. In the past, that was a little different. You had fish fries and you'd have 1,000, 1,500 people show up. Now you have a fish fry, the fish doesn't even show up. And these are the things that the internet has done and changed the election way, the way we run the city now, and the country in general, the world in general, is done by computers. You're missing that hand-to-hand eye contact where you say something and the body tells you something else. That you don't see anymore. So sometimes I don't get a full feeling of what they're saying because I don't see any body chemistry change.
I want to ask you about the role of City Council. Obviously, you served on council before. What role is it for you as a councilman on City Council, and do you see that role potentially evolving over time?
Well, the role is really legislative. That doesn't mean you can't make ordinances, or you can't come with ideas that make things changes. But sometimes your ideas take a little longer to justify the needs through the mayors, whoever the mayor may be. But I've had the pleasure of working 5 mayors, and I had a very cooperative feeling with all of them. They're all different. They all have different feelings, different ideas. But at the end of the day, they want to make the city of Tampa better than what they got when they became elected. It's legislative. That doesn't mean you can't come up with ideas or make ordinances to help society have a better life.
I want to talk about something next that's really important to the Tampa Bay Chamber, which is workforce housing. And as you know, Councilman, we define that as that 80 to 120% of area and median income, or that missing middle. What I want to ask you next is, what zoning or policy changes would you support to address Tampa's growing workforce housing needs?
I'm glad you asked that. As you well know, or some may not know, I come from the best workforce housing there is, called Tampa Housing Authority, the housing projects, 1860 County Court in Tampa, Florida. I believe that the zoning changes are necessary to have another addition to behind your house or in the side of the house, depending on the lot size. However, that comes with a risk. And what I saw in St. Pete Times, a 600 square foot house is going to cost something like $258,000. That's without the land cost. So I'm saying that's $400 plus a square foot, 800 square foot house with something in the $320,000 or $30,000, if I remember. That's way out of line. I'm not against them going in. You have to make a zoning change, and you have to make sure that everything is accordingly done in the right, proper manner. What do I mean by that? You have hundreds and not thousands of houses today in West Tampa and other areas of the city that are not paying any ad valorem tax. They're just paying the basic tax with your exemption of 25 or 50,000, depending on the time of life. And then you have those people collecting money, not paying any federal income tax on the money you get, and not paying any higher rate. And so therefore the school system is the one that's really getting bothered by that much, and not getting any money to help the school system. And these things have to be changed. When you make this change, you have to do it all at a time. Give them the right to have the house, but also those now that are not within conformity. And believe me when I tell you, there's thousands of them, I believe.
Council, we began by talking about the role of City Council, and one of those roles, of course, is to approve the city's budget. Some budget experts and analysts around the state are anticipating potentially a slowdown during your term. How should the city prioritize spending if there is indeed a smoothing of the economy?
I've always been called a hawk, not because I don't want to be one, I am one. I believe that a dollar spent, you should get a dollar's value for every dollar spent. That's number one. Number two, what the city council has done in the past, they try to give themselves a raise from 52,000, whatever it is, 53,000 maybe, all the way to 72,000, or 42% raise increase. And I voted against that. I led the charge as finance chairman not to do that. And more than likely after the election, that's going to come back up again. And I just don't believe I or anyone in business has ever given or received a 42% increase in salary for themselves. I've seen some budget changes that went on before I knew what was going on because they didn't come before us to vote. And my aide been with the city now 60 years. So her salary was much different than the others because they hadn't been there 6 months. And all of a sudden they get a $20,000 bump. Those things have been come before me, I'd have voted against them, but they did not. So these are the things. I'm not against raises. I'm against giving those raises that are not earned. You got to earn it on a yearly basis, not at one lump.
Thank you. I want to talk about home rule. Obviously, that's something that comes up from time to time at the local level. And as you're aware, Councilman, local governments across the state have been critical of the legislature in recent years. Do you agree, sir, that preemption has become a problem in Tallahassee? And if so, what would you do to work to establish a more productive relationship with our legislative delegation?
I think you got to go back to the basics of government itself. Nowadays, everybody hires lobbyists, and that's fine to a point. However, this country's divided. It ain't about the Republicans or the Democrats. Those are one side or the other side. There's no government in the middle. And there's where the vast Americans are in the middle. And it's sad to say, in my opinion anyway, that no matter if you're blue or red, that you want to preempt some government, local home rule, where you have the authority to do things, and then they take it away from you. And this has happened in Tampa 3 or 4 times. And it's really a hurt to the city. It does not help the city. It hurts the cities. However, you got to elect people that understand that the cities are government. Hillsborough County is an extension of state government in some ways. They get monies that we don't. And these are the things that the city is involved in. These are the things that we get blasted for. They take it away from us. And that's how it is. I wish I could change it by saying I can throw $2 million and a lobbyist is going to change. I don't think that's going to do the trick. They wanted their people to come out and the others not to. When you see, even in the election process, now if you want to vote by mail, every 2 years, you got to register it. Why? No one does either. If you're just a plain guy that goes, or a young human being that goes to vote on early election or election day, they don't ask you to register every 2 years. So there's a lot of things going on that do not fit the mold that I believe we should be in. But I don't think it's going to be changed anytime soon unless we elect people that want to work with the people they say they represent.
Let's talk about economic development. The utilization of public-private partnerships continues to be an asset for local governments across the country. What opportunities, Councilman, do you see for P3s in the city of Tampa?
In workforce housing, if we don't have partnerships, we're not going to be successful. It's going to be very difficult to do what the city wants to do without partnerships with private industry. As you well know, and you're aware, being in the chamber, a lot of the business that we bring in, we give them incentives to come in, but they got to meet that quarter of what they said the salaries are going to be, and they don't get it up front. They get it as they show their payroll and things like that. So these are the things that we've done in the past. I hope we continue to do that. I certainly will support that. Your city, although they have a big budget now, 1.9 billion, let's call it 2 billion just to round it out. It's also expenditure wise. You cannot expend more money than what you bring in. This is not a federal government process where you can spend what you want and write it off or pay as you go. There's no pay as you go in the city. You have to have the taxes in your hand. The public doesn't realize that on all the ad valorem taxes collected, and every building, tall building, big building, small building, it doesn't even cover the payroll of the police department and the fire department. This year was the closest I've seen it, and it was about $25 million difference. It's been as high as $55 million.
It wouldn't be a conversation about the city of Tampa without talking about transportation, of course. And uncertainty, of course, still persists with the already collected all for transportation referendum dollars. As you know, Councilman, the fate of those dollars now rests in the hands of the Florida legislature. Assuming that Hillsborough County is able to secure the funds this legislative session, what are the most important transportation investments that you would like to see?
Oddly enough, going back to what it was before, you have to start small. I believe you cannot have big buses running around empty, or they seem empty because they're so big. And the public sees that when you're driving by. And you have to have more buses, smaller buses, and make it, instead of waiting 30 minutes, every 15 minutes, go by and pick people up. If you have a bus that carries 20 or 30 people versus one that carries 60 or 70, and you do it faster, the people start getting used to changing their lifestyle. When we were young, that's all we had was buses. In the 50s, they took the buses out. In the 60s, they took the rail out. So we didn't have rail and we didn't have buses. I never forget, way back in the 70s, Harry Orr told me one day when we accepted the federal grant for the buses, he says, once you accept that money, the buses will never be again like they are today, on time, because you got to take somebody to Waimama for a quarter, and it doesn't work out. And Harry Orr was right. We were wrong.
Councilman, we've touched on several important policy discussions today, but before we wrap up, is there a priority that we did not get a chance to discuss or something that you'd like to reemphasize?
Certainly. Let's go back what we passed a few years back, the PIPES program. 20 years ago, I offered the city, I said, listen, you're collecting all the money for the process of the water and what it takes to produce the water, the chemicals, so forth and so on. But you're not charging 1 penny for pipes under the ground. And what happens then, as I saw the breakages go up and up every year, it was 8 million. It got as high as $24 million a year just to repair pipes underground. That is unsustainable. The pipes are 80 to 100 years old. We passed that item, and I wanted to start $2 way back 20 years ago for each customer. And right now we would have had a lot of money saved. We did something different, however. We did pass it with $2, and every year it goes up $1. I think now it's either $5 or $6 for water and $5 or $6 for sewer. We're producing out of that 54% of that 2.9 billion upfront, so that we don't have to pay the interest. If we hadn't done that, the PIPES program would never have been successful, because you had to pay half the money in interest. And this way, we're getting the PIPES program for 2.9. It would have been maybe 3.8 or 3 or 4 billion, and that doesn't happen. I can also tell you that in the water division, where I handle with the mayor's prerogative in Tampa Bay water quality, they're going to need $5.5 million just to change water quality, bond it out. 1, 2, they just passed a ad valorem increase, but they didn't put it in the right way. In my opinion, I voted against it. It was a 30-year bond for $130 million, and I thought it was going to be the first 2 years interest only. It happened to be in that 30-year, the first 16 years, or $6 billion a year times 16, or $96 billion, they're only going to pay the interest and no principal. That means that the next 14 years of the 30-year mortgage, somebody's going to pay triple and quadruple the amount of water charges. And that's what I voted against it for. I like to understand what I read, and I'm not in favor of everything, nor am I against on anything. I just look at it as it comes up, and I have to make a decision one way or the other. And that's how I've always been.
Thank you. And how can voters learn more about yourself and your campaign and the positions most important to them?
Well, I believe there's a website, and don't ask me what it is because I never used it. They called and I answer the questions, but it's a prerogative. Just study you can look Charlie Miranda, the city, and find out what I've done and what I haven't done. I haven't been asleep at the wheel, I'll say that. And look at the city now, not because of me, but because of all the mayors and all the other former councils that I've worked with. It's #1 today in relocation in the whole country. It goes worse between 1 and 2nd. It varies. And I just saw something yesterday where the city of Tampa is ranked #1 among all Florida cities in a lot of categories. And it's a wonderful place to live. And the young people, like my grandkids, live here. If not, they would stay where they were at to get a better education where they were at, and maybe stay in the city that they got the college degree in. But they're all home. And that's what it's all about. It's about living with your family, and it's about helping people move back to Tampa and those that want to come in. We have only 2 seasons in Florida, not 4. And those seasons are Christmas and summer. That's why they come for summer and Christmas. They don't come to see me. They come because of where we situated at geographically, the weather we have, and the lifestyle that we have. And we couldn't stay still. If we did, nothing would happen in Tampa. They used to roll the sidewalks up at 5 o'clock in the 70s. You can't drive in downtown now with the traffic that we have, or the city of Tampa. We have to address that and make it a little bit more passable so we can have better traffic conditions and less accidents and less people getting killed. But the city of Tampa is ranked number one. It didn't happen by accident. It happened by everybody, the chamber, the situation, the elected official doing what they had to do to make it what it is today. And thank you for giving me the opportunity to speak to you and your members.
Charlie Miranda, running for City Council District 6. On behalf of our members and our board of directors, sir, I want to thank you for joining us today and for your willingness to serve in an elected office. That concludes our interview.
I appreciate it very much.